So, I went to see Black Panther, and overall, I really enjoyed it. I did think that maybe they could have given Killmonger a bit more time to show us who he was. They used a lot of screen time on Ulysses Klaue in South Korea, and I think that maybe if they cut both those things down a little bit more, we could have gotten more of Killmonger. And that really would have allowed him to become a villain who, as some say, is as good as the Joker. But for me, we just didn't get quite enough of him. What we also should have had a bit more of was Wakanda, because I really loved Wakanda. And speaking of Wakanda, that's what this video is actually all about. One of the things that really struck me about the movie is how well it built this world of Wakanda, and especially how all the disparate parts of the film production, from writing to costuming to design, all came together to build that world. From the distinctive glowing of the heart-shaped plant to the explosion of color at the first King's challenge on the waterfall, Black Panther built its world in a way only a visual medium like film really can. It just wouldn't have had the same impact if you'd read it on paper. And that's what I wanted to talk about, just how well Black Panther built the world of Wakanda, especially because it's a fictional country that many people out there have never even heard of, and only really comic book readers will be familiar with. And given that unfamiliarity, it would have been really easy for Ryan Coogler and the producers of the film to just say, hey, here's a super advanced nation, and our hero is the prince of it. Kind of like how that other Marvel prince from a super advanced nation handled the world building. Instead, Ryan Coogler and the producers understood that what makes a country feel real is when its history and its culture still has an impact on the everyday life today. And that understanding was reflected across all aspects of their production. It's why some of the gadgets Shuri designs are shaped like traditional tribal beads, and why some of the ships flying around the place look like dragonflies and fly like dragonflies. Because, even in modern culture, we're inspired by our past. For example, here in Sydney, the convicts came over and built little sections and little towns all disparately, and that means that our roads are a fucking maze of a mess that is impossible to navigate. Meanwhile, for a more contemporary example, the Star Wars communicators used in the series back in the 60s and 70s were reflected in real life in the 90s and 2000s when Motorola released their flip phone. And I could list examples forever. The point is, history and culture define how we live and who we are, and that is reflected in the fictional Wakanda in Black Panther. Not only that, but the world isn't just built through the writing in Black Panther, it's built through the costume design, and that makes it really easy for audiences to understand who is who and who is from where. Wakanda is a country that's built on 5 different tribes coming together, and that is reflected in the way they look. None of them look the same. There's no way you could confuse a white-painted, fur-wearing member of the White Gorilla tribe with the more cloth-based and green tones of the River tribe. The Dora Milaje are all dressed in red and gold, and W'Kabi's Frontier tribe keep up the illusion with their more stereotypical tribal wear, but they all have a blue cape thing. Is that what you call it? Fashion's not really my thing. But it's blue, it's a sash, and it is distinctive. You can tell who they are. And so, when you get a big crowd of them, like you did at the one-on-one combat trial for the kingship, well, you can tell exactly who is who. Without even a single line of dialogue, you can see who is from where, and also learn a little bit about their culture based on what they're wearing. You don't wear heavy fur if you're living in a tropical safari. And that is awesome design. But what's all the more important is that the movie doesn't beat you over the head with its world building. Take it from someone who's tried to write fantasy, it can be very tempting when creating a fictional world to go on for 15 minutes about the history of a particular building or person. Instead of the 5 tribes, we only really see the 3 who are relevant to the plot of the movie, and we only ever touch on the traditions of Wakanda that are also relevant to the plot. That's why we only ever see the ceremony with the heart-shaped herb, and as well the combat trial for the kingship. Even at the beginning, when they explain the history of the White Gorilla tribe being separate to all the others, that becomes relevant later on in the movie. It's world building with a narrative purpose, and that's the best kind of world building. What it also does is it allows us room to explore more of the traditions and the history and some of the other tribes in any potential sequels for the movie. Really, the only faux pas I can hurl at the movie for its world building is that they open with a tired and cliché trope of some images going by while a narrator explains the history of the world. They didn't trust their audience to figure it out as they went along. Apparently, they did this as a reaction to confused test audiences. But you know what? Test audiences are stupid. The producers should have stuck to their guns and trusted themselves, because every bit of world building that came after that opening was fucking awesome. All I want for Infinity War is for M'Baku to survive. That is one badass vegetarian. We could use more like him.